Okay, good evening, everyone. This is Nivarthi Jairam, and welcome to the Seekers. This is a book readers club, which we connect every fortnight to have people present the interesting books they are reading and that resonate with them and what they have learned from those. So let's look at the logo first. And this session is sponsored by Digital Agility Institute, and they do a lot of programs on experiential learning and a bit more. Okay, so for today, we welcome the, I wouldn't say speaker, Karthik, who is looking to present one of the great books that he has been reading in last 2 3 weeks, and the book is Rework. So before we start with the book, maybe Karthik, we can have a quick introduction about yourself and your interests.
Sure, Nivarthi. Thank you, for having me on this Seekers Book Club and also giving me the opportunity to review this book. So I'm Karthik. I have been for the last 16 years been a HR professional, working on different aspects of HR operations to pre-sales to HR consulting. That's been my professional journey so far. So personally, I'm interested in occasional cycling. I'm also interested in reading a lot of books, no particular genre as such. So uh, I find time to read books, and also the other interest that I also have is to um, uh, explore different ways of improvising oneself. So I've also been doing a course in biomechanics, human biomechanics, which is more on physiology, and there's a personal interest to improve health as well. So that's brief about me.
Great. Karthik, again, first question which we usually ask, right? So
Sure.
there would be a number of books that you have read, but
Yeah.
you chose Rework, and it's a great book. I understand that it's all about changing the way you work forever. So why this book?
Um, uh, okay, there are uh, one of the basic reasons why I found this book very interesting was there were a number of books which basically revolved around self-help, self-development. How do you improve your productivity and all that. But this was one book which did not stick around with one theme. And unlike other books, apart from this being a book only for somebody who wants to start a new business or be an entrepreneur or understand the nuances of the entire journey, apart from that, what was interesting was it provided like tens of almost at least 200 to 300 different concepts, very conceptually and concisely explained. And it was not following any rules. Typically a book usually follows, trying to be diplomatic and not to be straight in your face. But this is one book which is tried to be in your face and telling the truth from an entrepreneur standpoint. And I think Jason Fried has done a very good job doing that. So this is one that is one of the main reason why I wanted to select this book.
Sorry, I think there was
No
a technical glitch on my side and I lost connection. Yeah.
no
So
problem. I think it's the new normal, I guess, everywhere. So it's fine.
you were talking about no rules. So that's when I think I lost the connection, Karthik.
Right. So the book comes with no rules, and I think it's directly into your face. It explains the concepts, and it kind of resonated with what I was probably 5 6 years back, and it also resonated with me in terms of the ideas and where I was lacking in kind of bringing that into onto the table. So it resonated pretty much with my struggles and my current situation as well. So that's why I think it made an impact in my personal and professional life right now in the last 2 3 weeks. So I took
Hmm.
some one or two key decisions in my current job as well based on this book. So it's working with me. Yeah.
Wow, that's great. And if you have to say, talk about essentially, I understand from the book summary that I read at a high level that this is more to guide you to probably create an enterprise that that you really are looking for. You have some great niche ideas to explore and probably gives you an understanding of how you can do it. So what is that you have learned from this book in terms of concept, if you have to talk about?
Um, that's right. It basically talks about helping people, anybody who wants to start a business and how to start a business. It gives a lot of conceptualized learnings. But I think I personally found it very interesting because I think apart from just starting a business, it also kind of nudges you, wakes you up from your slumber in terms of so for instance, for a long time I have had a few ideas within my work where I was not able to kind of bring it to the a closure. So so there were a lot of assumptions. Sometimes you have this world which says in the real world this concept doesn't work. You might have a brilliant idea, but do you want to relook at it? Is your plan foolproof? So there is always this thought behind the mind, and somebody always kind of pulling you back. But then there is a concept here. It says there is no real world. So real world is basically as an illusion, and there is, you don't have to wait for these real world concepts. You do it now. Now is the time that you jump in and do it. So it gives you that entrepreneurial mindset even in your job. That's what I felt. So I think that is one of my prime learning.
Hmm.
It enables somebody like me who at least now I don't want to start a startup or a business on my own. But then whenever I would like to start, or even within my own project scope within the company, I think it allows me to be an intrapreneur if not an entrepreneur.
Well, that's where I was coming to. It's quite an interesting thought that you are able to take the entrepreneurial mindset and the skills that probably or the competencies that are highlighted in the book essentially for that purpose. You're not looking to apply those in an organizational context, being an intrapreneur within the system. So, if you have to talk about two, three elements that really resonated, which you are looking to, explore in your organization currently. Any?
Sure. So I think one of the things that I really look at is, whenever it comes to stakeholder management and trying to sell a project or a concept. So we live in an organization. You have a lot of constraints. So constraint could be budget, constraint could be resources. You do not always have the accessibility to technology specialists, to or consulting, access to consulting, so that you can get them at your ease and comfort. So one of the decisions that I took probably 2 days back is to trying to conceptualize a data analytics model for one of my HR clients, and in that I took this approach where you have to live with the constraints. So I took that by literally, and I kind of viewed kind of conceptualized the entire model, and I sold it to my client, not completely, but then I was able to at least assure them and ask their buying to explore it more. So with that, I think you will not always have everything at your disposal to be 100% accurate on your solutions, but at the same time you'll have to live with the constraints and make use of resources which are available to you at that point of time. And I think planning will help, but at the same time you'll also have to be able to improvise on your constraints as well. So that is an important learning that I adopted by this, and it really moved my mindset, because living with constraints is something that we do with every day, and the only way to solve that problem is by improvising our strategy.
Hmm. Great points. And when you say that, okay, you have to live with constraints, and that's a learning for you. So, what changed in terms of approach when you read the book to before? If you had gone, how would you have gone? And now you already said that, okay, you now understand the constraints of the organization itself, and probably the customer as well, or the stakeholder as well.
True.
And then how did you change?
See, the approach what I took was, earlier my approach was, um, so basically to give them a detailed plan. So I was waiting for things to happen. So for example, I wanted to talk to somebody very senior in the data analytics team, try to make them understand my problem statement, the customer need, the current capability mismatch with the need, and wait for them to give me kind of a very elaborated model, and then go ahead to the stakeholder to present. Now this has been happening for last 6 months or so, and we have not moved pretty much anywhere. So post this book, I thought, this particular point, I thought, let me improvise myself. So I did a little bit of research on how I could prepare a basic roadmap to setting up a data analytics team, because I already have a very basic reporting team and I wanted to scale it up to a data analytics team. So I did my basic research, try to understand different models in the industry, and then came up with my own model, which in 2 3 slides, which basically explained their needs versus our mismatch of capability and what I can provide.
Hmm.
And the and I kept an option to keep the conversation on, so that I added a couple of next steps, that we will have 1 2 3 workshops, and these workshops we will bring somebody who is an expert from the field, and then we will take it forward. So that way I was able to convey and convince my client that, okay, fine, there is an approach. It might not have all the aspects that is required. It might not be a foolproof model, but at the same time it is not a vague model as well. So instead of waiting for another month or so before I get the complete plan, which is exactly what this book says, planning might not always work. I mean, planning takes a lot of time, and elaborated plan might, also lose the essence of your hard work. So, and the time as well. Time is very important when you're, doing these things. You might lose the leverage over time. So, I tried this particular option, and I think I was successful. So I've got at least the commitment to attend those workshops, and let's see, it should work out.
Okay, great. So working with constraints, planning, detailed planning probably is not really important. You can always correct your planning,
Yeah.
and those two things you talked about. So what else could be the learnings from this book, Karthik?
The other learnings, so for example, there is one important thing which resonates with me on a personal front is, you need to have a purpose and you need to make something different. You need to be really making your life, uh, uh, there has to be a dent in the universe. So you'll have to create something unique for yourself. There has to be a mark. And what is that purpose for me? So this actually triggered a point in my head, that I've come to an extent of the career where now it is time for me to find the next phase of purpose. So I had some purpose to achieve. I've achieved, I've accomplished. Now it is the next stage of my life where I want to find that purpose, and try to make a dent in my own career, make a mark in my own career. And that is when I have sought some of my mentors to mentor me on and understand how do I take my career forward. So this is one of personal learning that I've taken from the book, that you need to have a
Hmm.
purpose, and that purpose has to be revisited. It is not that I have a purpose and I keep that purpose forever, because purpose and inspiration, I think, has expiry date. So today's inspiration might not necessarily be relevant in tomorrow's world as well. It's kind of the time value of money. Inspiration and purpose also has some kind of time value.
That's another important point that you highlighted, that as we move along in life, right, our purpose keeps evolving, and possibly
Absolutely.
our goals then have to evolve as well, and how we look at them also evolves. That's
True.
another great insight. So and if you have to think about how you would approach, you already said, okay, you reached out to your mentors to understand. So in terms of approaching your future, after reading this book, what else you can pick from the book that could help you to move forward?
um, so the other thing that I think these are all interconnected. Again, it comes back to, um, so I don't want to spend too much of time on planning, or rather I would like to have very short goals, or minimum things to achieve. So it comes back to the book where it says, you need not necessarily always build bigger things, and it's not necessary that you have to always hang on to the word called growth. Now, growth is good, growth mindset is good, infinite thinking is good, but at the same time, growth doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be vertical always. And whether it is business wise or career wise. So my approach would be to have two or three simple things that would become a kind of a brand image of myself, who Karthik is and who Karthik stands for, these three values, or these three skill sets in the market. So that is exactly what I will do. So instead of starting a restaurant with hundreds of things on its menu and not each of those dishes being very delicious, I would rather have a small coffee shop with two or three proper very decent coffee that I can offer. And I can have, and if I can kind of attract customers based on my quality of services or products that I give, that is exactly what I want to have. Less mass, which means leaner you are, the more obviously it is more from a physiological perspective. You're better off, you're you're faster, you're healthier. Similarly, from a career standpoint, I don't want to have too many things. So I want to bring one important point here, is that one of my earlier mentors always used to tell me that if you keep asking people for feedback, they will give you, every person will give you two to three new things to improve. And if you keep focusing on only on things to improve, then the rest of life you will spend time only on improving things. So where are you spending the time on your strengths, which is already existing? So that is exactly where my career pivot will come into place, where I would like to have lean mass, which is minimum things, and I would like to leverage and improvise on those.
Hmm. Okay, I think that's another way to look at it as well. Whether you continue to improve, what you probably people say as lacking, or you concentrate on strengths and enhancing those strengths and making maximum out of the strengths you have,
Yeah.
right? So that also is definitely another approach. I think we also have Hari as well. Hari, if you have any questions, do feel free to or comments to let us know. And Karthik, another important point which you also meant is that, from the book also talks about, of course, consistent planning, and not necessarily it also reflects on another point, to be staying honest to yourself, right, and being humble rather than being possibly worried about big brands.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So what does that, how do you think that would apply to you in your work context? Because you did talk about entrepreneurship, converting the knowledge from the book into. So how do you think this aspect of not being overawed by the brands that you would compete with uh, would
Hmm.
would apply to an entrepreneurial, concept?
So one of the things I liked about this book on a similar lines is, um, in a business context. So in my earlier college days, we I was also involved in this, network marketing and all that. Although I was part of the sessions, but I never took it up, um, because I was not always fine with something like copying. So, one of the things that keeps it very humble is, humbleness is, when you are unique, and when you don't just copy for the sake of copying it. But even if you copy, because for example, if I have to open a coffee shop, it's not a unique idea. It's not, something that I've been discovering or inventing. So it's just another coffee shop. But then what makes me unique is my services, my brand, and my commitment, and my ethos in the way I deal with my customers, in the way I deal the business with the business, all these things. So similarly, in my work perspective, I think, what will actually reflect on my career is basically what am I unique for, and what are the two or three things which will keep me, and to be unique is to be creative, because copying is very easy, but then to create your own ideas, your own services, your own brand image is quite difficult, and that experience will only mean that I will be forced to be humble, because there will be pitfalls and failures, and I have to overcome and improvise on them over them.
Hmm. Again, so you talked about quite a few points, right? Right from the beginning. Just looking to summarize, you said, to start off, that you have to work within the constraints, whether it is at a personal level or at an organization level. That's one of the things you talked about. Detailed planning may not be necessary. How you plan
Yeah.
for what you are looking at, and then you also talked about, how you can identify your strengths, and do you look to maximize your strengths and possibly concentrate on your strengths rather than always looking to improve, and possibly you're
Okay.
not maximizing what you can get out of your strengths that you have, right? Probably you
Yeah.
feel you are always catching up, when you are
Yeah.
looking to improve, right? So
Absolutely.
another point as well. So, any other learnings that come out starkly apart from these four that you talked about so far, Karthik?
um, there are so many other things which are, kind of, minute things in the book. So it talks about, uh, focus on, yourself, not on, everybody else. So I think, that is more important, because focusing on self will help. So there will, basically, what it means to me is there are a lot of distractions, whether in business or others. Otherwise, at the more I need to compete with my competitors, whether in my workplace or in a business, it is also important that I don't focus on them in particular. So my pricing strategy for my product or service should not be based on, you as a competitor. So my pricing should justify the cost that I want to, price my product or service. That's an important learning for me, because I remember a couple of years back, at least 8 to 10 years back, one of my organization that I worked with, during one of the pre-sales engagement, there was a lovely question from one of the analysts. So he asked, while the organization during 2009, especially when recession hit, so the question was, when people are reducing the pricing for outsourcing engagements, why is our organization not reducing it, and why are we not giving discounts? Then the organization kept saying that, that is what we are. We are worth. If I price my service as $1, then my worth is $1. I don't want to reduce it. So the loyalty of customers doesn't depend upon discounts that I give. It depends upon the value that they derive out of products or services that I deliver. So that's an important learning which this book also gives, saying focus on yourself rather than focusing on distractions and others.
So it's about what you deliver as value matters than looking at your probably competitors and trying to uh, compromise, if I may use the word, your
Sure.
value just to map to the competition or overtake them. That's what you also, uh, are talking about, right? So if you have to tell anybody who is listening to this, right, why it makes sense for them also to read this book, what would that message be?
um, I think the way I would see this book, or the only one reason that I want to recommend this book, is because um, irrespective whether you want to build a business, or you want to learn to improvise in career or whatever, or in your personal life, I think the only one reason why you would want to read this book is because it will wake you up from your slumber. There are perceptions and biases that we have on different concepts, but then this book will nudge you, and ensure that, if not anything else, it might not, you might not do a major takeaway, and it's not necessary that you have to start a business tomorrow, but I think at least it will wake you up from your slumber, and you will be able to uh, retrospectively look at where you are, and not plan, but then not just plan for the future, but also trying to understand the signals. So I very personally believe that more than planning for the future, you should look at the signals in your life, where the future lies. And definitely we have different personal and professional signals that we get, and that is what we need to follow. So this book is for everybody. It is not just for the people who want to become entrepreneurs or intrapreneurs, but it is for everybody who want to improvise, and who do not want to settle down, who don't want to be stagnant.
Hmm. So that's the message for everyone watching here. So if you don't want to be content with your life and you just want to look to move forward, I think this is a great book as shared by Karthik, and it does outline a lot of elements on how you can move forward and what you need to focus on. And as Karthik was saying, we all would have our own constraints, whether it is in our personal lives or in our organizations where you are working. It's all about how you constructively navigate the constraints and still be able to succeed in accomplishing what you are set out for. And that's the key message. I think rest all falls into how you do that, and anything that is outlined beyond this is about the how part. But the major learning or takeaway for me is that okay, there will be constraints, and there are constraints even today when where you are, right? And it's all about understanding those constraints, getting those to be visible, and then how you plan to navigate those constraints and still make a meaning for your life. With that said, thank you very much, Karthik, for joining us today. It's been wonderful to have you and share your learnings from the book. As you're already part of the book club, I would love to continue to have an opportunity to discuss any further books that you are reading or you have already read to come and share your knowledge and your golden nuggets with us. Thanks a lot for joining today.
Thank you, Nivarti, and thank you, everyone. It's been a pleasure joining the book club, and looking forward to more learning from everybody, and looking forward more for more book reviews and their learnings, their experiences. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. We'll see you back in a fortnight with a new book and a new member to share their learnings and key takeaways and how they have used those learnings. Thank you. Have a
Thank
great
you.
week.
Thank you.